So, a lot of my losers have been criticized for maybe not doing enough, right? So the Pelicans, the Jazz, the Raptors, depending on when you release this one, clearly spoiled that. Who knows? But I'm adding the Warriors to this list. So we've kind of identified that the Warriors are in a weird limbo right now with a good young core that we constantly hear attached to trade pieces, right? Moody, Wiseman, some picks, some contracts, and you can get something decent. That's what we've heard constantly. But all they really ended up doing, and forgive me if it's too blunt, is they got rid of Wiseman to get back Gary Payton that they could have theoretically signed in the offseason. They just would have paid a high luxury tax, but then they could have still traded Wiseman with Gary Payton and then had something different. But the reason why it's a bad trade is currently it seems like Gary Payton's actually not going to play for a while, which
Yep.
means that the impact is not measurable. Yes, Wiseman wasn't playing for the team, but you're talking about an interesting prospect that other GM should have looked at saying he's cheap, he's interesting, and he might be able to do something for our team in a different system than it is Golden State. And to only get back a player that they've already had who's currently dealing with an abdominal injury doesn't feel like the return either of us should have expected for a caliber player or a prospect player like that.
Who's the GM at Golden State? Bob Myers, right?
But Myers.
All right, so I'm Bob Myers. Yeah. And I think a few things here go through your head because it's just the reality of human nature. Firstly, you sometimes make decisions that don't pan out. Wiseman didn't pan out. Yeah, that's probably what the reality here is. Okay, and let's footnote this one here. Obviously, this trade may or may not go through. I think they got a deadline until tomorrow, our time, to obviously decide whether they go ahead with it due to the injury report on, or the medical report on, obviously, Gary Payton, in a situation. Two, sometimes you let players go that you regret. I'm sure every franchise and GM has probably felt that at some point. Okay, so when you have a chance to maybe take a U-turn there and perhaps bring them back, you would consider it. And I think there's a big part here. We could probably do a whole take and probably need a bit of research here, but how many players just thrive in one system but sort of fail in others? Yeah, and I'm sure there's plenty of players we can think about, generally role players, sometimes superstars, okay, that obviously did really, fill their role really well at one club, went somewhere else, generally got the money because they went somewhere else, obviously that's why, all right, and they really couldn't replicate what they did really well at their last stop. And I think, GP2 obviously has a chance here to come back when he's healthy, whether that will be this season or not. That's a big question mark right now. And sort of again fill that role off the bench for them, which they were sorely lacking. Okay, it was a need that they had there. And I think the last part here for Bob Myers here and the Golden State Warriors is the reality that they're probably limited in what options they got to move here. Like at the moment, if you look up and down their roster, besides Wiseman and besides Kaminga, I don't think there's anyone that any other team is really, you know, really after. Yeah, sure, they're not trading Steph Curry, let's be clear. Everyone knows Draymond might hit the market if he doesn't accept his take his option, I think as well. Who else is on that team that anyone wants? Clay Thompson no longer really is a, tantalizing prospect in that sort of sense. Maybe some teams wouldn't mind him on their team, but not to give up draft picks, not to give up core players. And that's what Warriors would have wanted in return. So I think again, look, it's nice if you could somehow hit a trade, make a trade here out of something for the Warriors to then rocket them into a better spot than they are. But I think they're just simply, significantly over the cap. Their assets aren't really what anyone else is really looking for. And I think you sort of make some of these decisions to why you let Wiseman go and why you bring GP2 back.
But I think the frame of this take is not necessarily that they let Wiseman go. It's okay that the Warriors gave up on him. I think we ascertained it wasn't a good fit for their system. But there is so much intrigue and potential around Wiseman, and we even paired him, I think, in Charlotte the other week. That how did how did you only get back a player that you had last year that you could have signed, right? Because we understand the cap issues, but they're still really dealing with that anyway. How did you get back a player that you already had when you could have had that player and gotten someone new. And I think that's the thing. Was Wiseman's asking price, I believe at that point, 5 second-round picks. I think that's the way that the deal was structured, as in that was the first piece, and then they gave that to Portland to then get Gary Payton back. Could you not have gotten anything else at this point of the season or anywhere? Like, was that it? Because the second-round pick being traded for this, that wasn't named Hashim Thabit, is kind of interesting.
I feel, maybe you go out there and I'd love you to tell me what you think the Warriors could have swung for this trade period, hypothetically, that would have been impressive or would have moved the needle. I don't think there's just anything out there that would have really moved the needle. Yeah.
I'm looking at lists here, and you've got Thomas Bryant going to the Nuggets for a player and 3 second-round picks. You got Mike Muscala going to the Celtics for a player and 2 second-round picks. Jay Crowder went there for a lot of second-round picks. Players moved for second-round picks. I'm just surprised that they didn't do something in a different direction. I don't know. I think bringing back a player they've already got, I guess it's proven, it works. Unfortunately, he's injured. That wasn't public information, and maybe it's just it's a knee-jerk reaction to that. And if obviously he's not injured, we're pretty content with that deal. But yeah, a part of me feels like when you give up on a second-round pick like that, it's not a second-round pick, the second overall pick, that return doesn't feel warranted. And that was one of their few assets that they had, as you alluded to. So, the Warriors are in an interesting timeline now with how that's played out for them.
Yo, this is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.